Hythloday, you talk about being on point, but the topic is a pensioner commissary. And you have wanted to talk about Soviet style economy and how it works ad nausea. When you had control of a line of reasoning, that's what you want to talk about. You want me to restate my position, which was fine, but you were using your time, not my time. And the fact, of course, it's an hour. We put in more than an hour explaining our basic positions, okay? Yes, the topic is the commissary, but you are dragging us around in circles about, well, what do you think of the Soviet Union economy? What do you think about how it works? Oh, I don't think it's so good, Hythloday. I don't think it's so hot. But what do you think about it? And don't you see that therefore is a general complaint on your system? I'm like, yeah, and I also see how the particulars of that relate to my idea, and that uh, a pensioner commissary is not a giant totalitarian Soviet-controlled economy with no markets, right? Because you have to compare the economy that the commissary exists in as a whole. That's the whole economy that you compare. And since it's the American economy plus a Social Security pensioner commissary, it's not a Soviet style controlled economy. You're the one that doesn't want to stay on point. And I have the will to continue with you, but it's going to be much more particular. You're the one that's going to have to be kept on point. I am going to ask some pointed questions when it is going to specifically be my turn to do so, because I've already shown that I will answer your questions ad nausea. You know, well after I've said why I'm invoking the ad nausea part. Now the Socratic method, it's interesting. You brought that up. I like the Socratic method, so I didn't reject that concept. But I did not get to use any method of questioning. So this is all a fantasy. You're talking about why you resisted the Socratic method. No, what you resisted was any questioning. Now you got a notion it might have been a Socratic method, then that's the one. But whatever method I was going to ask, and it was not going to be Socratic, it was going to, however, be, questions. Let's answer this question, details. Not, do you like the Soviet economy? You know, all right. You keep saying generalities like we should just have debate and talk about the topic. We should have three uh, stick'em debates, one for the topic. Well, who says what the topic is? That's the whole issue. Me, right? It's the commissary idea, but you think that general third debate is going to be about Soviet style controlled economies and how good they are. Okay, the only, since we both agree that those are not a good way, that's not a good way to design or build or have an economy, then the next step would be to investigate, well, what relationships are there? What similarities? What are the negative things about the Soviet controlled economy that might pertain? We would go on to, and that's what I was going to ask you, is to see how these ideas pertain. Is it planning, or is it in general, or is it a particular kind of planning? Where do the negative aspects come that might also pertain to my idea? Okay, so this third debate that you talk about, there'll be one you decide, one I decide the questioning, and then the third one, which you also describe and you call the real argument, that you also will control. Well, the topic the whole time has been the commissary. You say that I go off point, but that is the topic, and you're the one that's dragging us to talk ad nausea about what is at best a side issue. Now, if you can establish a connection between that kind of economy and the mixed economy of an American style Western economy that happens to have pensioner commissary as part of the pensioning program, then make those establishments, make those relationships. That would be on point. Okay. Now you brought up that you had given some examples so that I would, to avoid the straw man of me calling you a vicious capitalist. But hey, have you noticed I haven't been calling you a vicious capitalist? And it wasn't because of those spurious things. It was because I already believe, and I heard you say that you're for some social services and stuff, and so I don't call you a vicious capitalist. Now, because of your attitude in this, and you're wanting to be vindicated, which is related to vindictiveness, you have these stray ideas like, oh, I better protect against this straw man. I'm not throwing a straw man at you, and are you appreciative? No, not at all. You're just still amidst panic in the way that you're reacting to an intellectual exchange. I've not called you a vicious capitalist. On the other hand, you have continually insisted that we will not move this conversation about my commissary idea away from your simile that it is communist. Right, so I'm not throwing a straw man at you, but you're going, it's communist, communist. All we want to think about is how communist systems work, and communist totally, right? And you think because you don't go, you're a dirty communist, that you've escaped this sort of straw man approach, but you haven't. You're dragging us over in that area for a reason, and it just happens that I don't really care. I'll take that as a technical complaint and just expect you to draw the relationships. I agree; those are negative styles of economy. Now, when you talk about the 2 minutes and stuff, I had said it would average to 30 seconds. I also said that, it's really a minute because you're going to look at it, and if a minute has passed, you just know it's time to be over. It might be less than a minute because you're watching the clock to see if the minute has changed. And I mentioned it'll probably go longer. And as a matter of fact, I let you go longer every single time for the first 45 minutes of the conversation. So de facto, you should be in possession of evidence to realize why, yeah, it was on those timescales. But I believe it is good to be quicker, and you talk about wanting to have an ordered debate. Have you had any formal debate experience? You know, of course, that you don't just get to make your point as long as you want. In a formal debate, you have a time limit. So perhaps we just have a disagreement there. But if you want to talk for 5 minutes or more, then videos are perfectly prompt enough. There's really no reason to do stuff like that live. 30 seconds, which is longer than most people realize and or should become, you should be able to make a statement in 30 seconds, is good on the bottom end, and 2 minutes is good on the top end. But perhaps we simply disagree with that. But basically, you're insulting me in the way that I interact with you. I don't think I lost control. I just got pissed and broke the rule about cussing after about 45 minutes, realizing you weren't going to let me ask a question. So I got mad. That's why. You can just deal with that. And the fact of the matter is, you ought to be less insulting about my style, because you ought to notice I haven't thrown the straw man. Instead, you act like you're panicked, like maybe I'm going to pull that out and throw that at you. I'm very direct. Everything that I'm bringing to the conversation, including the way you're rubbing me in the conversation or not, I'm upfront about that. And if you can't see that, you've got something obscuring your vision. You're certainly not giving me any credit for it. You're just critical. I don't really mind if that's what you think. Fine, because I'm not going to hold back my criticism. I just think mine's more material. You didn't let me ask questions. You say, well, the topic will talk. These were questions about the topic. You're saying that it's planned economy is all bad, and that somehow relates. So for me to find out how that relates to my system is on topic. And you can't see that, and yet you're going to be insulting to me and totally thankless about the fact that, no, I don't sit here throwing straw men at you. Whatever.